Welcome to the DMF. I am your host, Justin Yachts, and this is part 2 of my interview with Just.Another.Good.Story, Mathilde, a nonfiction book reviewer, and enjoy. You mentioned books you wish you read earlier in life. Now, I find that fascinating. What what um what compelled you to post that? Like, was there something? I don't know, I think that's a very important thing for people to look at, is like, what books do you wish you read, before? What do you know now that you didn't know that you wish you knew then, you know? So how did that kind of come about?
So I think it's just like that so many books taught me things, but even if we're not talking about practical skills, like for instance, I have like self-development books that taught me things and gave me some tools to manage my life or improve it. So better tools. And so I'm thinking about essentialism, for instance. I'm thinking about Swagger. That's what I
Mm,
really liked. You lead, take back your weekends, all that, it's like giving you tools. But there are books as well that give you a fresh perspective on the world and impact your vision on the world. And I think those books are as well so important because I wish I had read earlier this book I talked about before, why I'm no longer talking to white people about race. I
mm.
wish I had known before the history of racism in the UK and this like perspective on it. And all these things where you're like, suspicious minds is a different subject, going dark. So the thing about extremism, suspicious minds, also about how our minds are biased and how it's easy to fall in extremism. And so
Yeah.
all these books that impacted my vision of the world and that I wish I had read earlier. Personal finance, I'll give it one last one. Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah,
That's
which is interesting because it seems like that book comes up with like almost every bookstagram I talk to, is that. So I ask this to everybody, but I'm going to ask it to you as well. What do you think it is about that? Is it just the simplicity of that book that it does, or because it's not really teaching you complete financial literacy,
no.
but it teaches you enough to kind of like get you started of going, oh, wow, I didn't know about that.
I think it's the mindset, and it's something that every parent should teach their children. Uh, is this, so it calls it like poor mentality and rich mentality, and I think also the fact that it's like him as a kid and how he had a different like vision at home and a different vision with this father's friends. And I really think it's about that. It's about the message in this book and understanding that depending on your mindset, you can manage to manage your money and your differently. So
Yeah.
I think that's really what's fascinating about this book, and I wouldn't recommend it to someone who is already interested in personal finance, because obviously when you're already interested in personal finance, I think you have those basics. So it really gives basics for people who really have no understanding of personal finance. And I think that's a book every kid should have, to just understand those basics. And then if you want to deep dive into it, you can read other books. But
Do you, when you read that book, was it eye-opening for you?
so I think I read it really late. I read it, I think, 4 years ago,
Mm,
3 years ago. So I already knew those things. So because my parents taught me those things, and I
mm,
was fortunate enough for that. Um, but still, it was like also discovering the other side, like the poor mentality. And it was like, yeah, this can be game changing without having to like change your personality or like invest or anything. It's just changing your approach of money. And
Interesting. So you already had a lot of these skills already in there. So this was kind of review in some ways, which that's the first time I've heard that from somebody that I've talked to about this book, is that this is more review. So you already had a lot of those skills. Do you think that in the French culture that is more prevalent, the explanation of financial literacy, or is it just your upbringing where you were?
no, yeah, no, I don't think it's a general French thing. I really think my parents did amazing. uh I mean, did an amazing job. I'm not saying amazing. I'm just saying that they like, I'm still so thankful for them, because
Yeah.
they taught me so many important lessons, and not only financially, but emotionally, in relationship management, so many things, important family, all that they managed to teach me in a way, and without telling me, like, kind of reached that poured out through a story and through an
Yeah.
evolution, through a process. And so they taught me so many things, and I've got so much more to learn, obviously, but some basic things that I got thanks to them. And so I don't know if it's a general thing, and I know people who maybe didn't know about that, and
Mm.
so I recommend this book to many people. um so yeah, I wouldn't say it's a general thing. I would just say my parents were extraordinary. And
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah. Now, I'm looking at your bookstagram right now, and you talk about in your latest post, going dark.
Mhm.
You say in 2016 alone, online social media platforms played a role in 90% of all radicalization cases. Not only has social media facilitated extremist relationships, it has also sped up the radicalization process. That's that's kind of an astounding 90%. I mean, that's kind of scary. To
Yes.
to me, that shows what do you so my last question about, racism stuff, but I saw this and I wanted to bring this up, is that do you think that other forces are seeing this and are pulling the strings, or do you think this is just happening by happenstance? Is this just the idea? Is this just happening because social media has given us these tools and this is just kind of inevitable, or do you think somebody is planting these seeds in here and the sees the way that this radicalization can happen?
So I
That's a
think
broad question.
it's definitely organized. So
Mm,
definitely use, and she says it in her book. It's just that before, when people were forming, like, I don't know, fascist groups, or
mm,
I don't know, anything, um, they would have to find people through their networks, through their friends, meet people, will go into bars. I don't know how you could do it
yeah.
in many different ways. But now it's like, I have this idea, I have this mission or this belief, and I will use social media. So I think that it's inevitable, in a way that people are people are not doing this randomly, like they know what they're doing. Some are just sharing ideas and influencing other people, but most of the things she talks about is that people are recruiting other people on social media, and social media is amazing for them. You can find people
Does
everywhere.
does it discuss the dangers of also the dark web, which is kind
Yes.
of where a lot of them, like, it might start with Facebook, but I imagine that the recruiting process to the other platforms that have no, I don't even know what those are like, but I
Yes.
have to imagine that does she go in, does this person go into yes, it's a woman, go into detail about what of that is that happening as well?
Yes, she does. And what's interesting is she tried infiltrating all those groups she talks about. And that's where you see the process. So some, not all of them were through social media, I think. I think about one, I think fascist, like neo-Nazi group. And I think that wasn't through social media. But many other were through social media. And indeed, I think it starts with generally like on main platforms, uh through a post or message or something you share or you comment, and they see that, and then you will go through, like, let's say darker platforms, and to get access to a community. Discord for that is a really great platform, but a really dangerous platform, because there are so many groups like this, and then they have like chats and stuff, and hidden platforms and all that we don't know about, that we don't use,
Yeah.
and then they communicate like that, they organize themselves like that, and yeah, and so definitely she explores that, and I think it's really interesting because this stat you just read is really showing how much social media plays, like how big the role of social media
Mhm.
is in all that. So I think it's really, really interesting.
Interesting. Interesting. All right, enough about that, but I thought that was a fantastic statistic. Let's so last I want to ask you about books, and then we'll move on to some fun stuff. um, Tell me a little bit about, you talk about reading 100 books in a year. Would you say that's just the consistency that that we talked about from before, that's kind of where that's coming from, or?
Yes, yes, it's definitely consistency. I think there is no other way you can read lots of books without being consistent. And I'm not spending days or my weekends reading. And I really want people to understand that it's not, you don't have to dedicate like hours in a row sitting down reading to read a lot of books. And one
Unless
thing I
you
want
got
to,
to unless you got to like December, 29th, and you wanted to read 100 books, then yeah, you probably would have to spend hours
then
and
you
not eat.
you stop everything, you don't sleep, and you don't do anything. No, it's true, but but one thing I do want to clarify before talking about all that is that it's not a goal per se to
Mm,
read lots of books. It should never be a goal. So your goal is not to read 100 books a year, it's to
yeah,
learn from 100 books a year. So if you can't read 100 books a year without just like being like, what did I just read, or like reading through it, like skipping paragraphs and just like cross readings, and if you can't do like a proper reading, then don't try to read that much, because when reading then just to say, oh, I read 100 books and I forgot all, but then didn't really
yeah,
read them. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I've had comments, because I created a reel talking about that, like how to read 100 books in a year, um and some people commented saying it's not about the quantity, it's about, or I don't remember exactly the comments. And I
yeah,
totally agree. I totally
yeah,
agree. But does it mean you can't? You know, should you read then less if you can read more? No.
yeah.
If you can read more and learn as much, do it. And this really was about that. It was not about the objective, like the numerical objective. It was really about how to read more and learn more, and how to help you do that. So
Mm,
yes, I think it's consistency. I think it's all the things I talked about before, making sure you reading 5 minutes is okay. Just read whenever you can. Just have a book always with you.
mm. Now, what do you think of what is your take on like speed reading? I think we need a different term for that, but how do you feel about that?
So if it's speed reading, like you're a quick reader, good for you. If you're
Yeah,
speed reading to speed read,
yeah.
um,
It's just a means goal.
I
You read
mean,
100
why?
books, but you didn't retain anything. So it's like you were better off just reading one book
Exactly.
as
So
opposed to 100 books. Yeah.
why are you doing speed reading? Like, if you want to learn about speed reading and like reading faster, that's really nice. That's really cool. And like progressively, what's that? Oh, speed reading.
This is a really good book on this. Tony Buzan wrote it.
Oh, great. I don't know.
It's actually an interesting book because it goes into the benefits, and I mean, to do this, my problem with speed reading is that, like, I've learned it, but I don't see enough of. Uh, I feel like there's a large drop when you don't do the amount of work required to do this.
Mm.
Like it, I don't feel like it stays there. Like, I think there's this huge drop if you are not doing this amount of work to maintain the speed reading. So that's the thing I would like to see with speed reading. It's something that maintains it so that you could be doing it moderately and not have to spend, an hour every day just to retain the speed reading. Like, I feel like that you can learn it, but then it doesn't stay with you. And that's my question I would ask to, like, Jim Quick, who's wrote the book Limitless. He's a big advocate of this. Like, what do we do to keep it up when it kind of drops? Because I see, even in myself, if I'm not, practicing it consistently, I feel like there's this huge drop. Why doesn't it just kind of stay there? Like, is there no, like, medium ground of where it can stay? Does it have to be, it's like you went from 1,000 words and then you went right down to like 400 words per minute. So that's my biggest problem with speed reading right now, is I'm not seeing enough of the tools to retain the knowledge that you learn from it. I think it's beneficial, but I feel like there's more that needs to be done. I don't know, like, from the apps I've seen, I don't see anybody really addressing the sustaining it. Like, how much time should you have to invest in speed reading to be reading 1,000 words per minute? I mean, I've talked to people that have read who can read 1,000 words per minute. He talks about how most of it is coming from pictures, but I don't know, that's kind of where I get on. So I was just curious where you lie on there, where you lie on speed reading, and you
No, that's
answered that.
interesting. And I haven't explored the subject at all.
Mm.
I'm just all in for reading faster,
Cons-
but
Consistency
progressively.
is the thing.
Yeah, because I'm like, if I could read faster, but as well as I'm doing right now, so retaining as many things and all that, yeah, definitely. But I also don't feel the need to, and
Mm.
maybe that's bad, because in the end it will be an improvement,
Yeah.
to be able to read faster and still retaining
Yeah.
exactly the same amount of stuff. So I think it's a subject that definitely you made me want to
Yeah.
explore by talking about it.
The thing I like about it is having the option. I feel like that's the
Yes.
thing that a lot of people don't have, the option. And I think there's such a huge, I don't know. I feel like speed reading is the wrong term for it. Is it just, it
Yes.
makes
Yes.
it sound like it's going done. Like that's what it feels like when you say speed reading. It doesn't. It's the same thing. It's the same conundrum with video games. It's just like, it doesn't really mean what it means. It's not really. It is a game, but it's not. It's like these terms that have just kind of gone. Oh, it's like, we need a better term. But anyways, yeah, I'm fascinated to hear how you see the subject as you talk more about it. Anyways, moving on. Now we're going to talk just about you, just some, like, rapid, fire, quick stuff. No more, racism and topics of the world. So you, I love that you had the highlight tabs in there. and I assume that's because you don't want to highlight the book, because it's like when you're highlighting a book, it's like, oh no, I didn't mean to do that. Is that kind of where that's coming from?
Exactly. No, that's exactly that. It's I have a problem. I mean, it's it's like it's not a big deal, but I have a problem with that because I don't wanna ruin my books.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be ruining them, highlighting them and writing notes in them. And I totally get that point, like from people who are telling me, but why it's okay to do that. But still, I'm like, I can change my mind. And what if I change my mind? And now it's highlighted.
I know. It's like
And
you can't
so
get it off. You have to buy another book. I had somebody actually tell me, who said, well, I don't mind buying more books. And I'm like, so what? You want like 5 copies of the same book? I'm like, to me, that's
that's
insane. I
funny.
don't want that many. I want one book, and I want to be able to do with it that I like. So I like what you bring to it by having the highlight tabs. Because it's like, okay, you can still get the highlight out of it with the physical book, but you don't
Mhm.
have to, it's not permanent, you know.
Yes, exactly. And I don't think if it makes sense because in the end, we like change those highlights. No, because if you really think about it, I highlighted the things because I found them interesting, and this will never change. Like tomorrow, I can say, oh, I don't find it interesting anymore, but I did find it interesting yesterday. And so there's a reason why I found it interesting. So that doesn't really make sense. And I think also it's not really good for the environment, like so much
Yeah.
plastic and all that. So but I like so many times I've told myself, okay, tomorrow I'm switching to the highlighter and like forget about those
Yeah.
tabs and I'm gonna do that. And I just can't. Um
Yeah.
I don't know why I can't. It's
I think it's because it's permanent. Once you do that, like you can't, it's you can't go back and like get rid of. I mean, I guess you could like get white out, but then you'd white out the text, and it would be like, what's the point? But yeah, I find that with like there's some people that like love to like just tear up their books and they'll underline and do everything. For me, I like to keep it like as nice as I possibly can, and then I don't know. I think it's how you see the book. Some people are just like, just throw it around wherever, and they like to see that as ownership of the book. It's like, well, it's my book, so I'm doing it. But for me, it's like, I don't know, it's like a respect for the book. It's like I want to make sure that it looks nice and everything. So yeah, I don't know. I thought that was funny when I saw that on your Instagram. I was like, oh, I bet that's she doesn't like highlighting in the book either.
I think it's something in our heads, and it's like
Yeah.
we don't want to.
Um,
But fair enough. Like I'm happy like that. I'm just conscious of maybe the fact that it's off plastic, and it's not
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll change my mind, and next time we talk, I may say, oh no, I've given up on those, and I'm highlighting my book, and
They're
I'll
all
tell you
just
I
highlight.
regret
It's just a whole highlighted book.
yeah.
And then the danger comes sometimes you'll highlight too much and you're like, what am I looking at? It's just a highlighting. It's
Yes,
just a highlight.
true.
It's now the highlighting is redundant because it's just too much. Now you have dogs. How old are the dogs?
So yeah, I mean, I used to have two. One died
Oh,
recently,
oh.
but I still have one. Actually, not here. My
Mm,
parents' home. But thankfully, I see them very often, and that's something that I really, really missed in my life. And I'm trying to convince my boyfriend to get a dog, but
yeah,
but it's not reasonable because we both work a lot
yeah,
and we travel a lot, so it doesn't make any sense. Like when you get a dog, you need to spend a lot of time with
yeah.
them. And so it
Unless you want to
wouldn't
make
make
the dog antisocial.
yeah, exactly. But I do miss it. And so I have this dog that is a German Shepherd in France. And I think he is 8. I'd say 8. It's either 6 or 8.
Yeah,
Something like that. But
yeah.
I love dogs.
I do too. I do too. Do you have a beginning of the day routine?
Yes, I do. So I was talking about waking up, drinking some water, going to the bathroom, and then reading. And so generally, I allocate maybe 30 minutes to reading. If I feel like more, I just read more. And if I know I have like, I don't know, a meeting in the morning or I need to go somewhere in the morning, I'll just read less, obviously. But that's, I would say, like around 30 minutes in the morning. And then what I do is I do some like fitness workouts for about 45 minutes, 30, 45 minutes. I rarely do 45 minutes, so more 30. And then I take my shower, dress up, get ready, have my breakfast, and that's it. I mean, I actually have in my notes, to let me check if I didn't forget anything, my routine for the morning and the night. And I wrote it down because I was sure I would forget it. And so I have it. And oh, I forgot. Yes, after reading between exercising and between reading and exercising, I obviously check my Instagram, all my DMs, my notifications. That's a really important point because it gets busy. And so I do that, and usually I also do like Duolingo Italian.
Oh, you do Duolingo?
I do Duolingo.
I'm doing Duolingo right now. Right now, I'm in the finals of the Diamond League with like the craziest
Wow.
people. Yeah, so it's like I have to just. It's
Which
like as
language are
soon.
you learning?
German.
Nice.
German, yeah.
That's hard.
I learned German. My acting coach wanted me to learn it for the staccato level of speaking. He thought that would help me speech wise. And then I do a little bit of French because it's legato. It's the opposite
True.
of
Okay.
German. Yeah. So that, and then I learn a little bit of Spanish. But yeah, German is the one that I'm spending like the most amount of time. But
Wow.
yeah, I think I have done 722 days in a row on
Wow,
Duolingo.
that's really
Yeah.
impressive. Well
I,
done.
I
That's
sometimes
really
I have to look at that and go, yeah, that's real. That is real,
wow.
it's so right now I'm in like the finals, and it's like week 2 of the semifinals of the final. I don't know what we get, but it's just like you're just with like a bunch of people, all doing like yesterday, the beginning of the week starts, and it's like you're already seeing people up to like 500 all the way at like 20 minutes into it. And it's just like,
Wow.
how fast can we go? It's crazy. It kind of becomes a mean skull, but yeah, I love Duolingo. I think it does a really good job of because they continue to improve it. Um, One of the last things I want to ask you about is, do you meditate?
So I've tried, and I keep trying.
Yeah.
I think it's really something you need to practice. It wasn't natural for me at all. But I saw the benefits of it, and also the fact that since my job is really busy, and I have a really busy life in the end, and otherwise I just keep thinking about everything. And even when
Yeah.
I go to bed, I'm thinking about, oh, I forgot to do that, or things like
Yeah.
that. And sometimes you just need to, and I think during the pandemic and the lockdown, it was really important to practice those skills, and many people started to like just like explore meditation and all that, and I did. And I think when I feel very stressed or overwhelmed, I do it. Thankfully, lately it hasn't been the case, so I haven't meditated in a long time. But I think it's a really important thing. And I have this challenge, like there was like a meditation challenge, like every day you were doing like practicing meditation to improve. And I think it's really good. And we were talking about always having a book, and because if you have to wait, etc. But I did say that it's important as well to just either think and reflect on things or just do nothing and meditate. And we need
Exactly.
that.
Do you have a nighttime routine?
I do. So it's not accurate because obviously sometimes I'll finish work at 7, sometimes at 9, sometimes later. So it
Yeah.
depends. But what I do generally is having dinner many times. Like for instance, right now it's almost 10 p.m. So I don't think I'm gonna have dinner. And I don't feel very hungry. And I had lunch at 3 because my day was so crazy at work that I had lunch while having a meeting with someone else. And so I don't feel very hungry. But anyway, that's no point. So generally having dinner, let's say hopefully around 8. And then I'm just gonna take care of my Instagram a bit, like reply to all the messages I received in the day, comments and things like that. And maybe also think about strategy for the following day or following week. And then I'm just going to disconnect and pick up my book and read. And that's it. And until I'm tired or until I'm fed up and I don't have a TV at home. And I do watch series. Like I do have Netflix and I do watch series sometimes, but not at night. And yes, I think my routine is mostly reading, and that's a way for me to relax as well, no matter how complicated. And I wouldn't say, for instance, I would read Think Fast and Slow before bed, definitely not. But even if it's like a complicated matter, if it's not too complicated, I would read it. It relaxes me and it makes me feel like I'm learning something else, and getting out of my apartment and my job and my family thing.
Interesting. All right, cool. What last question. What films or television do you like?
That's a good question. So I love documentaries, obviously. We talked about that. The series I'm currently watching, and I'm really surprised I like it, is The Crown. And it's usually really not my type of thing. But I decided I will watch it because I think it's interesting for me also to learn about the history of the monarchy and the recent monarchy in the UK. I live in the UK, so I thought it was interesting. Even if many historians said that it's not accurate, like, so many things that are in the series didn't happen or are wrong. So I'm aware of that. I'm not like, oh, I'm learning, like I'm reading an history book. I'm aware of that. But I think it's really interesting. And I really like this series. Surprisingly, it's really human as well. Like, like talking about all the difficulties of the queen and like being a queen, what being a queen is, and family, all those like reflection on family. For me, that's really interesting. Yeah, I don't know what you like
Yeah.
to watch.
Do you like Game of Thrones as well?
Oh, so I think I'd say that there are two. So we're talking about two fiction, like or how do we call it, like kind of superhero thing, like fantastic
Well,
or
I know you like Guardians of the Galaxy from
so.
there.
I like the character, he's so cute.
Yeah.
The movie, yes, but it's just the character that is so sweet.
Groot.
And big and because my boyfriend like watches a lot of those movies, sometimes I just watch them with him. I wouldn't say I love them, but Groot was super cute. That's why I have those little like statues in
I
my
saw that. Yeah.
apartment and on my library. But then I would say, like, in terms of films, Harry Potter may be the only film, like fantastic film series that I like. And you, as you said, Game of Thrones would be the only fantastic series that I liked and that I watched and enjoyed.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's because of the hype.
except for the last episodes.
I actually watched the last episode in the US in like a bar. I think we were in Louisiana.
So everybody hated it.
And so I wasn't so, I mean, it was confusing and we all had our theories and stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know. I would need to rewatch it. And I wasn't so like engaged and so,
Yeah.
so I wasn't, yeah, some people really reacted because they were so into it. I liked it. I wouldn't say I was a fan of it.
Mm.
Um, but I liked it and it
Yeah.
was entertaining.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the problem with Game of Thrones is when they get away from the books, it starts to dwindle, because if you look at the early episodes, it seemed like it took them like a whole season just to get somewhere. And now all of a sudden in these later seasons, just like, oh, yep, they're here. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, shouldn't that be like, so it seems like they lost the idea of time, which was something that was very prevalent in the first seasons, especially the books, is how long it took to get places. And there was
Hmm.
this amount of time. And then when you get to these later seasons, 6, 7, 8, it's like that all went out the window. It's like, oh, they're there. Like, how? It's like they were just, if it felt like the creators wanted to wrap it up, and it was just like,
It's true. It's true.
but
That was my feeling as well.
yeah,
No, that's true. I remember now. It was 3 years ago though, or something like that, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's been a while. It's been a
Mm.
while. So with that, I want to say thank you so much for doing this interview. This was so much fun.
No, thank you so much for inviting me and having me on your
Yeah,
podcast.
this
I feel honored
is great.
and yeah, I loved having a discussion with you about all
Yeah,
that, and also the previous discussions we had, and I hope
yeah,
we'll keep talking in the future and sharing the passion of
absolutely.
books. And you've got a great podcast here. A lot of
Thank you.
great whole like people who came in on the podcast, and
Yes, thank
and
you.
yeah, I'm really happy. Thank you.
Thank you. How can people reach you?
So I would recommend going on Instagram directly. And so they can find me at Just.Another.Good.Story. So just another good story, but you separate the words with dots. So you can find me there. You'll see Mathilde, nonfiction reviewer, book reviewer. So people can find me there, can DM me. I love when people either DM me with questions, like do you have a book to recommend about this subject? Like I'm starting a new job or whatever. Like, do you have a book to recommend? Or just reaching out like, how can I, how as you say, like how can I start reading? I feel like I don't have time. Do you have any tips? Or yeah. And so like feel free to DM me, feel free to follow me obviously, and look at my content, and I hope it'll be helpful to you.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Justin.
Okay, that about does it for part 2. And once again, this is the season finale. So I'd like to thank Mathilde. You can find her at Just Another Good Story, at Just.Another.Good.Story. You can DM her for reviews and collaborations. She's a wonderful person, and I really enjoyed doing this interview. And I just like to thank her for her time and being so gracious with me and all the questions I asked. And yes, I hope you enjoyed it as well. If you liked it, please, give me a review, um, send me a DM, and I'll see you on the next season. And as always, you can find me at Justin Yachts, and I will see you next time on the DMF.